Our next panel is quite an interesting one. It's an all-marketer panel. There's something that's been levelled at Exchange-Wire and ATS events in the last couple of years that we've been accused of talking to ourselves. Ad tech talks to ad tech about programmatic. And even this morning I had a question going, are there any marketers here? I says, there's loads of marketers here. They're all here. They're in disguise. They're hiding. They don't want to talk to you. So it's important to hear from the marketers themselves, because I think over the last 12 to 24 months, a lot of things have changed. The relationship between the agency and the brands themselves is changing. We're seeing a lot of brands sort of doing direct relationships with vendors, where you used to have the agency doing those particular things, particularly around DMPs, etc. And I think that this is going to be the fundamental thing that's going to change in our industry in the next 12 to 24 months. The actual agency-marketer relationship. That is going to change, and that's going to change probably the biggest thing in our industry, which is the agency business. And I think that the next panel is going to be very, very interesting to hear from the marketers directly. And I'd like to introduce our panel. Before we do it, we've got Visa, Starwood and StarHub, three massive brands in this region. So I want to introduce Wendy, who will be moderating this panel, Wendy Hogan, Nikki, Janice and Jermaine, and give them a warm round of applause, please. Have we got microphones? Do you want to?
They're coming.
Oh, they're coming.
How do we use this? Stupid. Here, maybe? Ladies? Where do you want to sit in your beautiful dress? Okay. Morning, everyone. There are seats up the front row here and a few seats in the middle for the many, many people standing up the back if you want to sit down. Thanks for joining us. Thank you to the marketers in the room that are not sitting up here, that I know that this topic is interesting to them. I think the education, there is a marketer sitting here that told me that we had been remiss in our attempts at not educating marketers about the industry. So this is one of those things. So thank you to the ladies. I think I'll let you introduce yourselves, and perhaps if you could give everyone a sense of where you're at in your journey around educating and understanding the programmatic space. Start with you, Janice.
Hi everybody, my name is Janice Chan. I work at Starwood Hotels Asia Pacific, and I lead digital marketing for the hotels in our region. In terms of programmatic, for some reason I became known as the only woman who speak from a brand who speak at programmatic panels. So I get invited a lot, but I don't know if I bring much expertise to the to the field. But I think everyone can call me out if you like to. But in terms of programmatic, I think it started out with just as Matt has said it, with ad networks and stuff like that. And unfortunately, I think a lot of the bad habits have kind of transpired to what we know is programmatic today. I was talking to a gentleman earlier just now. I was like, what's the difference between the problems we had at the old days of ad networks and now? And he goes, oh, it's very different. I'm like, no, we still have the same problems. So I think that's the thing we're trying to overcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Jermaine from StarHub. I look after the strategy for advertising as well as building the ad tech within StarHub. I believe I'm kind of like putting on two hats here because I look after the sales side of the business, but at the same time work very closely with the buy side of our StarHub business in terms of marketing. So digital plays a very, very big part in our marketing activities nowadays, and because of the fact that we are an infocom company, so therefore that allows us an access to lots of data. So I guess this is where the transformation happens. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Over to you.
Good morning, I'm Nikki Kenyon from Visa. It's only just occurred to me that I'm sitting up here a little bit like a target because we're the clients and many of you are not. But I'm here to share...
Don't be like that, Nikki.
I preface in that way because I'm here to learn. I'm here to share with you what I don't know, which is actually considerable amounts, I think. I joined Visa just over 6 months ago, and I've been marketing for, 20 years. I've been doing digital marketing for more than 14 years, so it always amuses me when people say digital's new and digital's niche. And then we're in this whole new era of programmatic. My role at Visa is to lead transformational change in marketing. I'm VP of digital marketing, but the idea behind that is to integrate and embed digital and social into everything that we do across the organisation, within our marketing team, our comms team, and even beyond. So again, that's why I'm here, because there's a lot that I need to learn about this space. So here's your target.
So before we get into the programmatic stuff, can you set the scene around how your budgets kind of play out, and how much is digital a part of the overall kind of marketing mix, and then how much, perhaps, if you can talk to if programmatic is part of that as well as yet, or if it's something that you're looking at investing in. Maybe starting with you, Nikki.
Sure. So I sit on the regional hub team for Visa, which means I personally don't have a great deal of budget. So there's another caveat to that target conversation. Most of the budgets is held in local market, and across the region we're probably seeing upwards of 40%, 50% digital versus non-digital. Now even that is a difficult one to quantify, because now with TV being digitally enabled, outdoor is digitally enabled, how do we define what's digital and what's not? So that's actually an ongoing debate that we have with our media agency right now. In terms of programmatic, the average is even harder to define, but I can say that in some markets it's 0, and in some as a percentage of digital, and in some markets it's more than 50%. So wildly disparate. And the region that I'm talking about is Asia Pacific. So from India up to China, Northeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand, Oceania, Southeast Asia, and everything in between. So wildly disparate and diverse behaviour.
Can you talk to your... I'm not sure if you can.
I think I will pass on that because of the fact that I don't really look after the Markham side of it, but I would like to say not in terms of the percentage, but in terms of the fact that the digital advertising budgets have increased, and programmatic is just one part of the overall digital strategy that we have. So it is increasing, but I can't share with you the percentage.
No problem. Janice?
Okay, for Starwood, we are very lucky in the sense that our leadership firmly believes in digital, and therefore in Asia, a large portion of our budget is actually allocated, of our marketing budget, is allocated to digital. In terms of programmatic, I guess it depends on what you lump into programmatic. We're very heavily focused on performance marketing, and I would say for the digital marketing part, potentially 80% of our budget is on performance marketing, and then 50% would be, if I had to really allocate it down, would be programmatic. And that would.
When you talk about performance, do you have a holistic approach to the way you look at search, social, maybe display programmatic, video, like mobile? Like, is there a holistic view you have of it, or do you use different agencies to buy all of it? Like, how does your stack up?
We would love to look at it holistically. However, there are huge challenges in getting there. One is, I think there is, we use different agencies because there are different capabilities amongst the agencies. Some agencies are better at search, and some agencies are better at display, and then performance marketing. Another part is the some part of it our fault, some part of the industry fault. The tracking issue is a huge problem. Cross-device tracking is still an enormous challenge, and not sure that if we're in a market like Asia where mobile is surpassing, mobile usage and conversions surpassing desktop, we can't track mobile properly. But part of the problem is all of the platforms rely on advertisers to put on more tags in our apps, and I'm trying to convince my headquarters, like, we need another tag, and we need to completely go to the back end and change it up and add some more tags, and then that's not practical for marketers. So I challenge everyone out there who's looking at a startup to figure out a way, if I don't have to add another tag, but I can track mobile marketing.
I'm sure there's one or two in the room, right? They exist.
Yeah. And then the other part is, I guess like bringing in the social part. So a lot of times we're focused on the paid side. Well, social is also paid, but if it's not paid right now, then most of our focus is on, okay, how do we measure the attribute value to what we pay for? However, in social, there's a lot of content marketing that's drive the brand awareness of the engagement we're driving prior to the actual conversion that I think is lacking. But there's some things that we've tried that worked quite well, but it was tied to one platform. I won't name which one, but they were the one platform that we could do where we showed it video advertising, then retargeted the people who finished reading video with a direct response message, and that worked quite well for us. However, it was tied to just one publisher, and ideally I would like to be able to do it across publishers.
I think that speaks to what Matt was talking about in his session around ownership of data, and so being able to buy across channel and measure across channel is really difficult, right? So there are one or two partners that you can work with to do extensive marketing, and then does that, listening to what Matt was talking about, does that concern any of you thinking about how you own things versus how you work with those kind of partners, without naming them?
Well, yeah, I mean, Visa is a company which probably has it sorted when it comes to privacy and security. We're an electronics payment company. We facilitate commerce peer-to-peer between merchants. We have the bank as issuers. So there is nothing more important to us than data, privacy and security. So that just means that we conduct due diligence with any form of activity. Now, our business is essentially a B2B business. Our banks are our clients, and it's the banks who in turn have the relationship with cardholders, with us, with people, with consumers. So our marketing takes place in a slightly different form. It's more brand awareness. We're an ingredient brand, if you like. People don't think about going out and taking up a Visa. They go and take up an HSBC or a SCB or a UOB card or program. So the whole management of it is slightly different. But we do have products that are increasingly going to need to be linked and marketed directly to consumers, like PayWave or some of our e-commerce tools. But you cannot underestimate the importance of security. But it's a test and learn. You can't not do something because you don't know enough about it or because you're fearful, because the world's changing, and if we don't come up to speed as marketers, then we're going to miss the opportunity. So, establish a relationship with a partner, test and learn, keep the test and learn within as safe as it can be environment, and then roll it out if it works.
How do you go about making that decision about who to, is the agency the people that lead you through that, or do you do it directly, or how do you select people to test with and markets to test with? It's a very good question. I was at a conference last week in New Zealand where I was asking everybody that exact same question. How, of DMP providers and programmatic providers, and to hear, Matt, you talk about this as the industry. I'm a marketer looking into that industry, but it's part of my industry. It's part of marketing. So I see it very holistically. And I'm just trying to learn as much as I can and talk to people. So I think building trust and building a relationship, and some of the things that you talked about, transparency, sharing knowledge. This is no longer about differentiating ourselves because we're digital marketers, and we're special because we know more than the non-traditional marketers. This is about, I say to my digital team, everything you know, I want everybody in the organisation to know. This is about knowledge sharing, and the more we do that, the faster ahead we'll become. So partnering with someone who can be transparent with us and be honest about what they know and what they don't know. And then, of course, we've got systems, we've got processes. So, there's compliance and there's legal and there's finance and there's our existing agency relationship. So there's no short answer, I've just realised. What about you, Janice?
As a marketer, I think it's important to stay attuned to what's going on in the market. So I find attending conferences like this where there are very few marketers is actually a great thing, because I can hear what the guys on the other side are talking about. Keeping myself up to date is important so that you can call the agency out when they're like BSing you. So I realize that you do have to keep them on their toes. I'm sorry, agencies. My agency knows that. I always call them out. And I think as part of the guys on the the sell side, on the provider side, it's important to provide the education for the marketers. There's a lot of confusion. Oftentimes, when people don't know, they just don't want to ask questions, and it's too embarrassing to even ask what's programmatic now. So that's not talk about it. And the fear is preventing a lot of that, progress. So. I think it's more, why make it, how about we challenge ourselves? Next ATS, we have 50% marketers join the conference, and that might be like the momentum that we need here.
Jermaine, how do you go about vendor selection and working out who you work with?
Okay, well, it's actually quite a complex one in terms of the matrix. Firstly, because of the fact that there are many players out there, anyway, especially in the last 2 years. We first started this whole journey of digital transformation 3 years ago, and I think you could really count them, the number of players and vendors that you can work with. But over time, due to adoption, due to education, and due to the fact that APAC has actually progressed and grown so quickly, there are many, many choices. So, we're quite fortunate at StarHub because we've got lots and lots of people just knocking on our door on a daily basis. So my team, it's meeting new players, whether you're a startup, whether you're a major global or regional player. So internally we have a very stringent process, simply because in the same way as Nikki mentioned, data is important. We have an offline DMP, and that DMP actually, of course, aside from our CRM data, which is anonymized, we also have another set of data that we talk about here, which is TV. All right, and that's very, very new. But we have started return path data. That's a huge amount of data that we have. That's the next step that we're looking at. Now, so therefore our requirements are quite different. We're looking at how we could bring offline and online together in the DMP and then make it available programmatically over time. I can tell you it's not easy, all right? It is truly not easy. We talk about tags as well, and there has to be a move towards universal tag. We talk about cookies that, cookies are dropping off, so are we going to start to look at new ways, using PIIders, anonymized. So there are lots and lots of things happening, but key thing here is reliability, the fact that we could rely on the vendors who are transparent, who are able to look at cross-platform, who are able to look at offline, online, and compliance. These are all, the boxes to tick when we select our vendors.
Great, thank you. Another thing that I like to talk about is the marketing tech versus ad tech, and the overall kind of spectrum of the tech stack that you need to be a marketer these days, and talking about the transformation of marketing and that everything is, being touched by digital or becoming digital. Is marketing tech something you think about in your businesses yet? Where is it at? Like, is it globally decided and then handed down to you? Is it even a term that's familiar to you guys, or where does that sit in, here in APAC from a digital marketer's perspective?
Let's start with Janice.
Sure.
Define marketing tech.
Well, that's up to you.
Right.
Do you see it as a bigger,
so yes, a lot of
CMSs, all sorts of things.
Being our global company, our majority of the decisions are made in the U.S. However, where we are able to, effect some changes and things is because we have China. So China is a very good convincing factor for the U.S. to say, we need to do this because of China. So that's one thing.
That old tactic. That works well.
Yeah. The other, I guess, there's a universal desire to, of course, get a DMP in place, get our, CMS, get our CRM up to, today's speed. I think a lot of big corporations are still, some do it really well, e-commerce sites doing really well, some retailers do really well. Asian companies have a lot to catch up on. In terms of the whole full cycle, marketing for a customer, and then the other part is, we recently only put in, multi-touch attribution, and that's, I think it can be game changing for us. Finally we can understand where actually, what's the relationship between all the different types of channels and how they work with each other, and whether it had an impact on that final conversion. So.
Was that through a typical enterprise tech vendor that you kind of worked on
Yeah,
building
we-
that out
we
rather
always
than an ad tech specialist?
Well, I don't know. I guess like so for Starwood, we trust the more enterprise solutions a little more. Although they are not, they have their challenges too in terms of costs and time to implement. And whereas if you work with a smaller company, they are more agile, they're faster to, they're flexible to your needs, and they will change your whole company business model for you because we're Starwood, right? There are advantages to both, and I think we're still testing out, different type of ad techs or marketing techs. As well, and there's just there's so much of it too. That's the problem. There's so much of it, which goes back to the other issue. It's you end up adding so much date sites and tags and whatever on our sites that it's slowing us down in terms of our site speed too. So that's like a whole different topic for another day.
Did you want to talk?
In terms of marketing tech or ag tech, yes. I think this is where it's kind of a hybrid here, because internally our IS departments are actually part of this marketing tech. Mm-hmm. We have been doing this for quite a long time actually, but bringing in another ag tech partner helps us to open up lots more opportunities that we probably never saw in the past. So I would say it is always good to look at it holistically across the board. First, look at what exactly we're trying to achieve here, and we're trying to achieve quite a lot. But now with all the resources and vendors available, the solutions out there, I think over time it becomes marketing tech and ag tech is just going to be homogeneous.
I'd actually asked Wendy not to ask me this question because I didn't think I had the answer. And I actually don't. I haven't heard the term within Visa. We have possibly one of the most sophisticated data systems in the world because of the transactions that we manage. Millions and billions of transactions go through every single day. But it's not personally identified data. So that's our electronics payment business. But on the marketing side, we're a legacy brand that has relied on traditional means to make ourselves famous. So TV advertising, big outdoor signs, our sponsorships. The world that we're in today is bringing the two together. So our marketing teams are realising that the opportunities are now unprecedented, and on the other side of the fence we have our data teams who don't know anything about marketing, and the two need to come together. We need to be able to think about how we can be better, smarter, more effective, more efficient marketers, and data is what's going to enable us to do that, and automation. So we're at the very, very beginning of this journey. We don't even have a name, a term for it internally. So yeah, let me leave it there.
So you have a data team. I assume you have an IT team, a tech team that does kind of tech kind of evaluation, right? And then you have a marketing team, and then you have a digital marketing team within that team, right? Yeah. Do any of those people talk to each other?
They do, yeah. It sounds horribly... Wendy knows the business as well as I do. It sounds terribly siloed. So the transaction side of the business is very separate and very, it's behind Fort Knox type environment in the US. The IT team who supports our internal systems, our intranet, the things that help us work as Visa employees, and our visa.com website, we have an exceptionally good relationship with them here in the region and our marketing teams. Very, very business-oriented people, very mindful of them being there to support us, whatever the business needs to achieve, and in turn, marketing is there to support the business. We don't do marketing just for the sake of doing marketing to make ourselves feel good or look good or win awards. We do marketing to support Visa's business objectives, which might be, for example, convert from cash. That's what marketing's there to do, and in turn, IT works with us very, very closely to understand what the business objectives are, to then help us provide the tools, the resources to deliver the most efficient marketing that we can do. So that's how we look at it. We look at it as business first, then identifying who is the target audience, who is the consumer or customer that we're going after, and then we think about, well, this is where we're going. It's not actually where we are, but this is where we're going. Then we think about the channel, the tools, the processes, the automation, and those other things, and IT and marketing work very closely in that regard.
Did you want to talk to that, Janice? Are your
Not
silos
really.
talking to each other?
Okay. Yes, our silos are talking to each other, but we could always be talking better. And we're very collaborative. We do have an analytics team. We have a CRM team. We have a digital marketing team. We have a platforms team. We have an IT team, and to add to all of that, and within the digital team, we have merchandising teams as well. But the good thing is we've all started talking to each other. Oh, and then each division also has a leadership who wants wants what we want, like China. The analytics team has been around for a long time, just like Visa. I mean, we have a lot of guest data or customer data that we are, and we work kind of like a government, so we don't like to release this information or use it for, and we're very protective of that data. So our legal team is always wary of us sharing this data with any publisher, which frustrates the publishers because then they don't know how our advertising is working and converting. But there could be, and I think in general most brands have this challenge is that the guys building the platform are not really marketers, and they should be talking more to the marketing guys and the merchandising guys, because they're building things that are really beautiful and works well, but then you can't track marketing, or it doesn't work as well across different platforms, etc. The app is in silo to to another channel that we're using. So I think that's a challenge, and that's something that brands need to solve.
There's something Matt mentioned around transparency. We were talking in the stuff that Rachel was presenting around fraud was only showing a little bit. There's a lot of hype around programmatic and automated media trading that a lot of issues that get mentioned in the press a lot. Does that reach your ears? Does that concern you, or do you feel like your agencies have it under control and it's not an impact on you guys?
I think everybody needs to be aware and accountable for it. It's too big an issue for one person or one group to be responsible for it. You certainly can't delegate it to anyone. I think everybody needs to be responsible. It was interesting, again, last week at this conference, the number of companies that shared with us statistics about the people that we're all marketing to actually not being too concerned about their own privacy of data. They just have expectations that we as marketers manage it well, treat them with respect, deliver relevant messaging to them, and they're actually okay to receive advertising and to receive appropriately targeted advertising that doesn't abuse their identity. So that was a very interesting consumer perspective, which was actually quite refreshing to hear, because that's the direction, as I said, we're audience first in our approach. And the more relevant and targeted you can become, which of course relies on some knowledge about the person that you're targeting, was really rewarding.
Well, I think if I can pay $1 if I have to pay $1 to everyone says, I see Starwood ads all the time, and that's all I see. Why is that? Then I just go clear your cookies. That's my dad just complained to me on WhatsApp the other day. I was like, you're on Starwood's website too much. But I mean, that's one of the legacy problems, Matt, right? That came from ad network days. I don't know why we still have that problem. But in the old days, we were just like, okay, well, maybe we just buy one ad network, right? That will solve that problem of having 4 ads appearing on the same site when they're not supposed to. There is definitely a transparency issue. I think there may be governance that needs to come in, like when finance industry, it's a free open trade market, right? The rate it happened was there was regulation that got put in place. Well, I'm not sure with advertising we'll ever get there, but maybe there has to be some governance that gets in place. We all need to work together to get there, because it is a big challenge, and sometimes, and then the biggest fear for a marketer is that our ad will appear in a site, even if it's not pornographic or religious or political, that there's just some tragic thing that happened in a destination and we put an ad out right beside it, right? Just for that destination as well to say, come here and enjoy, stay, right?
Like Tunisia.
Yeah, exactly. And how do we prevent that? And all we get now from agencies, oh, sorry, right? And then
Really?
Yeah. I'm not saying my agency, but I'm just saying they can't do anything about it. They're like, oh, well, it happened, so now let's manage it from a crisis perspective, right? But can't we just prevent that from the beginning? Like, I thought the whole point about programmatic is that it's intelligent and smart and, automated.
Jermaine, do you see issues with fraud and transparency and other issues that the ad tech industry may discuss today?
Yeah, well, I would say accountability is key. I agree with that, and the responsibility just actually lines with everyone in the ecosystem, and it's true. So I would say, if I were to put on my sales side of the hat, that's something that we actually would like to instill that, simply because for one, StarHub itself, we are very concerned about our brand. So in the same way, if we were to manage our customers and the marketers, brands, advertising, that is something that we would actually exercise the same kind of control. But of course, how are we going to manage that? It is a matter of how we actually work very, very closely with our partners. We have a very stringent, I would say, criteria that they need to keep constantly looking through their blacklist and whitelist. It's almost, I would say, just treat it that this is StarHub, that is advertising. So that's exactly what we want. But other kinds of, ad fraud, there's the non-human side of the traffic. That's something that I would say we will really need to appeal to the technology stack that they actually have to look into the algorithm, they were to be able to detect this, because it's true, once trust is not there, there's no way we could actually grow programmatic. Yeah.
I think that the problem is even more, it's amplified in Asia because all the markets are in such different growth phases, right, in terms of their ad tech and marketing tech. So in one market, it's completely normal to have third-party ad serving, and and you can bring in U.S. technology, it'll kind of work here. But in another market, they don't even want to deal with that type of partners or technology. So you can't have from managing from a central location and trying to get the same type of standard across markets is a huge challenge. And so I think it's also from an advertiser side for responsibility to push publishers, the big guys out there who has the money to say, I know that a lot of the FMCG brands are actually pushing advertisers to conform and to follow standards.
So just one final question before we flip to Q&A. How do you think we could do better at helping you guys do your jobs better and be more successful with programmatic and ad tech?
I thought I had a quick answer, and that was an easy question. Then I started thinking about it. Again, Matt said it before. The language, understanding. I'm the only person. I invited our media agency to come into Visa just after I joined to tell me what is programmatic. And I'd come from Facebook, so you'd think I'd had a clue, but and in marketing for 20 years. But I said, come and tell me what it is and tell me what it means for Visa, and are we doing it? Should we be doing it? Just tell me. And I initiated that, and I got all of the marketing team to join, but everybody was even as informed or less informed than I was. Today, I'd love to have more of my colleagues here today or at events like this, and that will happen over time, but there's a little bit of uncertainty as to who owns this, who's responsible for this. Is it me because I'm digital marketing, but I don't hold budgets and I don't brief the agency? I don't hold the relationship with our media agency. Or when it comes to dealing directly with vendors, it won't be me who manages that relationship either. But I'm the one that's most curious, and I think there are things that we need to change, and there are ways that we can be better, more effective and efficient marketers, and this is one way. So I'm inviting people along the journey. So I think recognising that it came up before, you don't know which questions to ask, so you don't ask anything. You put your head in the sand and you keep doing things the way they've always been done. The world's changing. That billions of people are on social and messaging platforms, and that our digital spend is going from 30% to 40% or whatever. But changing behaviour is the most difficult thing in a client-side organisation to do. So the easier that the information can be forthcoming, the more common sense, the more simplistic. You know, I've redefined marketing for Visa, and I've said the role of marketing is simply to connect. It's all about connections. Connect the target audience, the consumer, the end transactor with our message, with our brand, with our product, with our service in support of our business objectives. So even simplifying what our purpose is within the organisation is the message that I'm trying to convey. So in this space, which is daunting, it's confusing, it's mystifying, and it's not mine, they're the barriers that you need to overcome.
Jermaine?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I can put it to training. You could talk about best practices. Such an event like this, I'm sure it's useful, and it's true. I agree with Janice. I think next year you should put a quota, 50% marketers. Yeah, I'd experienced that as we actually take to market our solution as well. We have the smart targeting solution. And that's what we talk about in terms of offline TV viewing, doing an audience extension into digital. And that itself, it means going out there explaining two things. Firstly, what digital advertising is, and then bringing in about how offline and online can actually be merged. And at the end of many of the sessions, you get a lot of really, really confused looks like, have I confused you even further? All right, and I think it's just simply because it's evolving so quickly, and I would say on even a monthly or quarterly basis, there is new technology, new solution. It is quite actually a maze out there. Yeah, so I think it's regular communications. I would say if it is a media agency who does all the planning, then they have to be part of this I would say, education process. But of course, us as AgTech partners should actually get very involved with the media agency, go out there, meet the client, and have regular workshops perhaps. There's a lot of fact that you could be reading of or attending a seminar and knowing, basically broadly across about what you can do. But like what you say, Nikki, it's what does that do for my business? I would like you to help me understand how that can be applied to my business. I think that is a conversation that's a lot more tedious, and but it's going to be useful if you really want to move the needle here.
The problem with this getting traditional marketers on board is programmatic sounds too digital. So if you change the name, maybe people will come on board, right? It sounds too technical, and so they're like, oh, I don't know what that is. You can throw cookies in there and try to convince them that it's. But there's just a lot of different obstacles. So for one, it's thinking about it's beyond just digital. So it's not just a digital marketing person's job to figure out how to use programmatic. Another one is we need to change the way how we budget. Right. So right now we and trust me, we have that problem too. It's our agencies are coming and saying, oh, you need to budget differently, and you need to get always on and etc. But traditionally we're used to buying by campaign, by objective, and so it's a huge mindset change. And I think it's more just getting that conversation out there, getting the traditional marketers and advertisers and publishers on board, so that we're all talking the same language, simplifying the language, maybe changing the name Programmatic. And then and like everyone has said, just simplifying the language, because the problem with traditional marketers is actually digital is traditional now, but is that they can't get over the really technical terms, whereas it's just marketing at the end of the day.
Okay, we've got a few minutes for Q&A, I believe. Does anyone have any questions for the ladies on the panel? Sure. I can see Ben over there.
Okay, I'm coming down, Ben. I'm not running.
There's lots of... the lights are really bright.
We'll go down here first to Stu.
He's gone straight past you, sorry.
I'll come back.
Sorry about that, Ben. Hi, Stu from Crux. I thought it was very interesting, and I want to focus in on one specific thing which, Janice, you mentioned, which was multi-touch attribution. And we all agree it's super important. It's the game in town now. I wonder, in some of the work that we've done with Nielsen, powering some of their multi-touch attribution stuff, it's been very interesting to watch the dynamic between the world's largest brands and all the people that swim around those world's largest brands for pieces of budget. And I just wonder, when you think about multi-touch attribution, do you feel like ultimately that has to be owned by the brand? Or do you feel that that's something which can kind of be shared around the world of people that want to get in on the game of how do you do multi-touch attribution? Because my personal view is it has to be something that's owned by the brand. Only then can you really understand what's going on with the closed walled garden vendors, what's going on with the tech vendors, what's going on with the enterprise information providers and systems providers. And there's so many people that play in that world. But I see some of the brands sitting on the fence a little bit and trying to figure that out. And I think that's a real lightning rod for action, is if the brands say, multi-touch attribution is something I have to own.
I absolutely think the brand should own this. You need to have how else are you going to keep have the litmus test, right? It's the only way to keep everyone real. If someone's coming to me with the results of like, based on our multi-touch attribution, our results are better, I'm super skeptical. We had, we partnered up with a publisher once, and they used a third party to measure the effectiveness of their marketing. The results, of course, show that publisher was undervalued, and we should be spending more with them. And I trust that the third party was actually legitimate and giving us real results. But I was still skeptical, right? I'm like, how is it that you're funding the study and that the results are so skewed to like buying more with us? So absolutely, the brand should own multi-touch attribution and the data behind it. Brands should get behind a DMP and own the data. But back to Matt's comments earlier, should anyone be owning data, right? It should be kind of an open market so that we don't have to go, if we need to do a campaign, we don't need to, then work with someone else and to match our data to make it happen. So and there's only so much I think one brand can have in terms of data on all its customers, etc. But just to answer your point, yes, absolutely, every brand should be looking into investing in MTA.
Sorry, Ben from Starcom. So a question, he took my multi-attribution question. The other one was query, right? You talk about the budgeting process, and this is something that we see as an agency across a lot of clients. The other part of that budgeting question as well that comes back to the agency and eventually to the client is also the concept of billing. How have you all tackled this billing issue? Because I've seen large organizations reject programmatic invoices, search invoices, Facebook invoices, technically all programmatic to a sense, because of sense differences or different reconciliations. So as an industry, are we looking to tackle this at an accounting level? Because it's creating a lot of frustration. And I also want to understand how you as the client side are tackling this conversation to educate your finance colleagues, which is a large part of the equation.
You want to take that one, Janice?
Not really. I still want finance to pay my bills. Yes, it's a challenge. The good thing about Starwood is that everything programmatic is owned by the digital team, or we're very clear about who is the budget owner. So even as the digital team, we can go knock on that, person's door and say, pay that bill. I think maybe if your clients are not paying the bill just because it's coming from like a trading desk that they don't know. I mean, shouldn't it just be coming from the agency? Like, why is it a confusion? Oh, so there's the comment was that there's like 1 or 2 cents distribution problem because, oh yeah, that happens. It's life.
I don't think that'd be unique to programmatic, would it?
Talk to finance.
Okay. I just have one last question. Actually, I'd love the opportunity to talk to marketers. This is the first time I've ever an all marketer panel at ATS, an all female marketer panel. I was fantastic, by the way. A round of applause. It goes down to the agency relationship. I mean, the more we get into programmatic, the more your teams get on top of it, the more that you do these DMP relationships, that you do vendor relationships, what's the agency relationship going to look like in, say, the next 12 to 24 months? How different is it going to be? What are you expecting from your agency? What do they need to do to do this stuff? Because it sounds to me like we're moving away from bulk buying to more technology and data-driven stuff, the kind of stuff that Accenture, the consultancies does. So do you expect the agencies to evolve their models? And is that something that marketers want and need? And that's the question for all three, because I want to hear from all three about that.
Nikki?
That's a brilliant question.
Thank you.
Let me give you a brilliant answer, or I'll try. I think we expect a lot. But I don't think what we expect is unrealistic. We expect a lot of ourselves. We are expecting our internal teams to become much, much more savvy about many more things. We no longer want to talk about traditional and digital marketers. We're all marketers in a digital world. And that means getting with the program and understanding how we can reach our customers more efficiently, more effectively, and this is the way forward. So get with the program, work in partnership. I firmly believe that the role of our media and creative agencies is undervalued. They've been doing this for many, many, many years, but there is an onus on them to now get with the program also and do it today in the way that's most relevant and into the future. So work in deep partnership. It's all about relationships. Again, it's something that you can't just park to the side. It's not just about cost. It's about a lot more things. True partnership, understanding our business and understanding our business objectives, and then being objective. So working with whoever, not every partner is going to be the best partner for Visa. The partner that's right for us might be a different partner that's right for StarHub or SPG. So help us understand with the technical knowledge that our agencies have, choose the right partner with partnership in mind and with our business objectives in mind. Be ahead of the knowledge curve if possible. Again, we're all responsible for that. We should not delegate knowledge to our agency, but we should ask them to be as responsible with helping us know what's coming. Let me pause there and I'll let the others have it.
Okay, I would say it's a holistic approach. And here again, we're not talking about just digital, because in StarHub, we have a non-traditional as well as traditional advertising in all our marketing mix. So therefore, I would say the media agencies play a very important part, because you can't just dissect it out into the different platforms and say, you look after the digital part, and then we will continue to look at the other part. So therefore, I would say a holistic approach where partnership comes into play again, where the conversation is constantly happening. We bring them into AgTech conversation. We share with them all the new solutions that's upcoming, so that at the end of the day, again, it's back to marketing. It's still marketing at the end of the day, whether it's digital, programmatic, or traditional. Yeah.
From a client side, if you're a brand, then marketing has evolved to you needing the understanding of analytics, traditional marketing, and then how your business runs, right? So you need people that are entrenched in the business, that knows what are the business priorities, but also have that analytics hat and the social and psychological ability to analyze social data. All right. However, because that will never be the core business, we can never expect brands to have remove the agency and just start buying, even with our own DMP, buying directly. I know some companies have moved towards that, but I just don't think it not being a core business that it's possible. So we will still have to rely on agencies to actually do the work in the background. What agencies need to change is the way they need to be more agile. They need to stay. They need to keep the brands more, as Jermaine said, educated on what's going on. And as well as they probably need to change the way they structure their teams too. Maybe be more entrenched with brands as even more so than they are today. So they need to really understand how business works. So we bring in our agency for our strategy meetings. They're in there hearing what our leaders are saying in terms of our business priorities, so that they can help us with planning for for the year. It's because if they don't understand the business, there's no way that they can be impactful and effective in the way they buy for us.
Ladies, thanks very much. Round of applause again for a great panel.